Hello, everybody. Welcome to TueNighter Tea, Midlife Indignities with Kristin van Ogtrop. We are so excited to have you here tonight. My name is Robin Gelfenbein, and I have been helping produce all of these wonderful events for TueNight. I'm going to bring up our founder in just a little bit, but I wanted to give you a quick lay of the land if you have never been in the Crowdcast universe before. Hello, Michelle. Hello, Margit. We want this chat to be super lively all throughout, so way to go so far. One of the things that's different about Crowdcast, which is wonderful, is that you can use emojis down in the chat. So fire those up. Keep the conversation going throughout. If you have questions for Margit and or Kristin, we're going to have a Q&A at the end. There is a wonderful ask a question section at the bottom. You can drop those in. Michelle, this is a lifesaver. Yes, it's a lifesaver. And I've got lollipops over here. And guess what the sticks are made of? Q-tips. So anyway, yeah, we've got some fun stuff at the bottom. And if you run into any trouble throughout, I will keep an eye on the chat. But I say we get this sucker rocking and rolling. I also want to know what kind of tea you're drinking, since this is TueNighter tea. So tell us if you're drinking water, that's cool. Tell us what you've got in a cup or a mug or pint. All right, hint water. Awesome, Michelle. All right, so I'm going to bring up our trusty founder of TueNight. She also was the former editorial director of RealSimple.com. She is an award-winning reporter and editor who has contributed to Rolling Stone, Redbook, and Refinery 29. Give all the love you can in the chat for Margit Detweiler. Woo-hoo!
Hello.
Woo-hoo!
Hi, Robin.
Hi, Margit. How are you?
Cheers.
Cheers. I'll cover the brand of iced tea I'm drinking.
Oh, nice.
They're not.
I've got my Kamala I'm Speaking.
This
is a birthday present.
That.
Yeah, it's very tasty.
Mm-hmm. What kind of tea is it?
Yogi. It's like energy tea or something. I don't know what's in it, but it's definitely got me buzzing.
Oh, really? No. Well, it's going to be a very exciting conversation. So
it is. I'm quite looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. All right. Well, I will let you take it away for the evening.
Yeah.
Have so much fun. And thanks everybody for being here.
All right, y'all. It's good to see so many people in the chat. Hello, Michelle. Hello, Lauren. Who else do I see there? Afua. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but welcome. Susan, welcome. So for those of you who are new to TueNight/TueNighters, we are a storytelling and community platform for women over 40, Gen X women, or as we like to say, grown-ass ladies, because we are and we know what's up. Women of experience. We have been around since 2013 doing live events like this one, storytelling events. And just this past April, we moved off Facebook, where we had our community, into a new platform called the Mighty Networks. And we have a phenomenal new subscription platform called TueNighters, which is producing tonight's event. If you are a member of TueNighters, you know that we have amazing workshops, courses on everything from how to be a badass at online dating to how to write all the death documents like wills and all the stuff we do not want to do in midlife, but we know we kind of have to. And we have one coming up, which Robin will tell you a little more about later in the show, about how to organize your digital photos, which is, I just feel like those are the kind of things we need at this point, right? It's the real simple in me that wants to do this stuff. So we have lots of cool stuff, plus the most amazing community of Gen X women you will find anywhere. There's not really anything like it. So we hope you will consider joining. We'll put a link at the bottom to let you know how to join later. But tonight is about Kristin van Ogtrop, who is my former boss from Real Simple. She is an amazing human being, I have to say. Really enjoyed working for her back in the day. A little bit about her first before we bring her up. After getting her BA in English from the University of Virginia and MA in English from Columbia University, Kristin began working in magazines as an assistant to the managing editor of Vogue. She subsequently worked at Premiere, Travel and Leisure, Vogue again, and Glamour. In 2003, she was named editor-in-chief of Real Simple, a job she held until 2016. Along the way, she wrote for various publications, contributed essays to the books Child of Mine and The Bitch in the House. She wrote the Amateur column for Time and the book Just Let Me Lie Down, Necessary Terms for the Half Insane Working Mom. And in 2018, she began a new career as a literary agent at Inkwell Management. She is going to be talking tonight about her book, Did I Say That Out Loud? Midlife Indignities. So we want to bring up Kristin van Ogtrop. Welcome. Give her a shout in the comments.
Woohoo!
I hear you, Robin.
Oh, good. I actually can't see you, Margit, but Kristin, can you see Margit?
I can see Margit, and I can hear Margit.
Oh, now I can see you. Great. I'm out.
That's
Have
good.
fun, my loves.
Oh, and we have Corinne in the chat too. Another former Real Simple person.
Yeah.
Well, welcome, Kristin. It's so good to see you.
Super generous introduction. It's really nice to be here, and really nice to see you again.
All right. So now, first, tell us what are you drinking? What's your tea of choice?
So
Teacup.
For me, it's more about the cup than what's in the cup, because the cup is actually water. I drank so much tea this afternoon because I'm super tired today. But so I write. There's part of my book when I talk about leaving magazines, and all I wanted to do was take a pottery class. And so this is something I made in my pottery class, which I sucked at, P.S. But this was a mug that I made for my son for Christmas, and his name is Axel. So that's an A.
Oh.
I don't know if you've ever taken pottery handles, or like just ridiculous. Like handles, I think really separate the men from the boys in the pottery world. And so like I'm not a good handle.
Good handle.
But I put a little KVO on the bottom. So that's proof that I actually made this not great mug. But I had this instructor named Susan, and she kept saying, you have to add more texture. She was from Hungary, and she had kind of an accent. You have to add more texture. And so anyway, this one has a little bit of texture.
It's beautiful. Well, good mug. Nice mug.
It's not beautiful, but it means something to me.
I like it. It's good. Well, before we jump into some Q&A, we would love to have you read a little bit from your new book, so we can get a sense of it. It is, before I do that, I just want to say I absolutely loved it. If anyone has read Kristin's work in either her column in Real Simple or any of her books, she's hilarious. And in this book, she really captures midlife and all the sort of just the mediocrity and the insanity and the all the maintenance we have to do, and just it was very well done. So I loved it.
Highs and lows. Well, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to read. I'm going to read from a chapter called Friends 100%, and it's about friendship. I was saying to Margit before we started, this particular passage makes me seem like I think a more unappealing person than maybe most other parts of the book. But so this chapter is kind of an homage to my book group, but not the part that I'm going to read. So,
all right, I'll let you be on the screen.
Okay, thank you. There are friends you lose touch with and friends you break up with, and if enough years pass, sometimes you don't remember the difference. After Deirdre and Hope, I did not fall obsessively in love in the same way with any new friend. I had a husband and I had children, and that was as much obsession as my tender heart could bear. Now my friendships with Deirdre and Hope are like big pieces of costume jewelry that have been passed down to me, too meaningful to throw out, too outdated to wear. So they sit in a box on a high shelf in my bedroom closet. I rarely look at them, but I always know they're there. Why does it get harder to make friends as we grow older? Perhaps it's because we can't hear each other the way we could when we were young. When you're young, there is very little competing background noise. As you get older, other voices begin to chime in. Partners, kids, bosses, electricians, plumbers, PTA presidents, and soon there is clamor all around you. If you make a new friend, she must join a very noisy chorus. She will never be the soloist. And eventually your backstory just gets so long. It becomes the Encyclopedia Britannica, for those of you who get that reference. While you would never require a new friend to read the whole thing, the fact that she can't means that she may never fully know you, which is sad. But that's life. You don't have time to read anybody else's encyclopedia either. I like to think I am good at friendship. I will listen patiently and will try and even occasionally succeed to ask permission before I offer advice. I'm never embarrassed or freaked out by crying. I will bring a side dish and laugh at your jokes. I'm not cheap when it comes to flowers or wine. I will happily lend you my cupcake tin, my car, my guest room, my child to take in your mail when you are on vacation, provided you pay him a little something. I will do the driving if you don't want to. I will eat wherever you want, really, I don't care, just as long as there's something besides okra. I will make myself available for a walk, as a good friend does. There are people in this world, however, who are great at friendship, and I am not one of them. Not long ago, I read an interview with Clemson football coach Dabo Swinney, in which he said, "The way you do anything is the way you do everything." Dabo Swinney seems to be not only super successful, but also a super nice guy, the kind of person just about anybody would want for a friend. However, I don't agree with his sentiment. The way I feed my dogs, for example, is not the way I feed my friendships. I feed my dogs with vigilance, frequency, and a firm sense of duty. Plus, except during the brief moments when I wonder whether I should be making them homemade meals in my food processor, I believe that I am good at it. In contrast, I feed my friendships with, well, unless you are a lunatic/perfect pet owner, feeding a dog takes 3 minutes twice a day. Feeding a friendship, oh, I get tired just thinking about it. And yet friendship makes us human. It's what sustains us. You've seen all of those studies about social networks, how people with strong human ties are happier, yes, but they're also healthier and less likely to be depressed, to have high blood pressure, or to die tomorrow. Friendship, the feeling of generosity and love for your fellow man, the drive to connect with people, is a force that runs through your life like an underground stream. You can't hear the water burble, but it's the reason the grass is so green. Until you reach a certain age, when perhaps other things demand your attention, such as your 2 dogs, who probably should be eating homemade food containing kelp powder, which you must order from obscure websites. And friendship just seems so, well, time-consuming that you wander away from that green patch of grass and eventually find yourself in a brown field where it's clear there has not been any water flowing in a very long time. And then you become sadder and lonelier, unloved and lost, and eventually you won't have anyone to come to your funeral. Even your dogs will be long gone, especially if you never got around to ordering the kelp powder that some website promised would help them live to the age of 20. When I was first married, I lived in Brooklyn and had one phone, a rotary dial that sat on a bureau beside an uncomfortable chair in the living room. I had a particular friend whom I adored then and still adore today, who really, really loved to talk on the phone. And just talk, without a clear purpose, at a rambling pace that made me feel like I had ants crawling all over my body. He called frequently, not to confirm a fact or make plans or thank me for dinner the night before, which was what we all did before texting. He called just to talk, as an expression of friendship. I love this man. He is generous and interesting and has an open-minded way of approaching nearly every aspect of life. He is a voracious reader with a voice full of laughter, and he remembers parts of my backstory that even I have forgotten. Still, when he called and I answered on the rotary phone, I was stuck there, as if someone had shackled me to the chair with a pair of leg irons. It was excruciating. I began to dread his calls, which I couldn't avoid because caller ID had not been invented yet. And what if it was my parents phoning to say someone had gotten engaged or fallen off a ladder? And then my husband, ever clever in the gift department, gave me a cordless phone for Christmas. Now when this friend called, I could do something productive while we talked, like water the plants or sort the laundry, and all was right with the world again. I do not actually believe this is how life should be lived, with productivity as the #1 goal and friendship barely making it into the top 5. But it's how I'm wired. There has never been a time in my life when I wanted to just sit and talk on the phone. My parents and sisters are exactly the same way, which is why we get along so well. Technology has only made matters worse. I have an old New Yorker cartoon tacked up beside my desk that features 2 guys sitting at a bar, and one is saying to the other, I used to call people, then I got into emailing, then texting, and now I just ignore everyone. Exactly. My sister Claire, who is a therapist, says it is possible to be an extroverted introvert, and maybe that explains why I behave the way I do. Sometimes I get an alert from Facebook that a friend is celebrating a birthday, but I ignore it because I'm lazy, because I'm too lazy to log onto Facebook, and the whole thing seems insincere and forced. And then when it's my turn, and I see the number of people who post birthday wishes to me, I'm filled with shame. Sometimes I skip an opportunity to go out for drinks because I just want to stay home and watch Pitch Perfect, wedged in a cozy chair beside a giant dog, even though I've seen that movie half a dozen times, and the dog and I will both be asleep before it's over. Sometimes I meet a new person, and even though she is nice and fairly interesting, the thought bubble over my head reads, I will be okay if I never see you again for the rest of my life. Sometimes I see a person I truly love on the train platform and still ignore her, even if I haven't seen her in 6 months, because I prefer to sit in the quiet car where I can read the paper and not have to socialize. Or it could just be a morning when I hate everyone. I read an article in the New York Times last year that described the importance of weak ties. Sociologists have come to believe that casual human interactions can be extremely valuable and important to your mental and psychological health. Once upon a time, no one thought it was worth researching the way you interact with your mail carrier, but it turns out that your mail carrier does a lot more for you than deliver the kelp powder that will, for an afternoon, make you feel like a person who has her priorities straight. Your mail carrier is important because she is a low-stakes acquaintance, and low-stakes acquaintances can make us happier and more satisfied. In other words, who needs intense friendships when there's the pharmacist and the dry cleaner and Magdalene at Blue Dog Wines on Wolf's Lane? They know my name, what pills I take, what size I wear, and what kind of wine I prefer. They are helpful and friendly, and interacting with them is always pleasant. That, I sometimes think, can be enough. And then I do go on to say how that's not enough, actually, but on some days,
yay! Snap, snap, snap. I can't snap. I'll try.
That was
great. I snap backwards, which is really weird. Anyway.
Wait, do it again.
Can you hear me, Margit? I'm snapping.
It's like the wrong way. It's really weird.
That is
anyway.
Weird.
Oh.
But I digress.
You might have to do that in slow motion for us.
Oh.
That's pretty good.
Okay. So, wow. Yeah, we were just sort of talking in the chat, like, who remembers, like, the person, I mean, calling each other on the phone when we were kids just to talk. I mean, we did that. I would never do that now. I mean, and the people that do that, I'm always like, what? I mean, you said you thought that was mean. I'm like, no, I identify with all of that. I think a lot of us do, right?
But also, like, I had a conversation with my 26-year-old son today about something he's doing tomorrow that I felt required a phone call.
Mm.
And he's like, no,
yes.
let me just read you or let me play you the voicemail. I was like, no, just like put on your big boy pants and call them back. Like you actually need to talk to a person on the phone.
Right.
So I think that as we all have stopped talking on the phone, there's a whole generation of people who don't really know how to talk on the phone. Like even like make a phone call, talk on the phone.
Right. That's true. That's true. And there definitely are things where you need to have a conversation, a verbal conversation, because a lot gets lost when you're texting. I've had many of those mishaps.
Yeah.
Well, tell me, so did you set out to write about midlife indignities? Like, what was the process, or was it that you had this collection of essays and they sort of appeared to connect in that way?
Yes. I mean, both. I think, let's see. I had started to write when I was in between jobs after I left Real Simple, but before I started working at Inkwell, which is where I'm now working. I wanted to write something. You know, I took some time off in between jobs, and I thought, I want to write. And a couple of things happened that I write about in the book. A couple of sort of dramatic things happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was trying to write a book about sort of tying some of these things together, and it like totally wasn't working. So I was writing something, not really knowing. And in fact, did you work with Jim Baker, Margit? Was he there?
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Jim Baker, when I left Real Simple, said to me that I needed to write with no attachment to outcome.
I thought that was him. When I read that, I was like, that's Jim Baker.
Yeah. And so like I put a Post-it note on my desk that said no attachment to outcome. And I just like wrote. And anyway, what I was writing at the time, some of it ended up in the book. But the collection itself, the subtitle is what came to me first, Midlife Indignities and How to Survive Them. And I thought, you know, and I was talking to my editor. It was at like a publishing Christmas party, and the editor of my first book is the same editor, Tracy Behar, for this book. And I said to her, I want to write a book called Midlife Indignities and How to Survive Them. And then we just got to talking. And so some of the essays already existed, and then some I wrote after I started talking to Tracy about the book. Yeah.
The no attachment to outcome is such a good way to think about writing. And we have a lot of writers in our audience too. I think it just frees you up so much, because it's not like you're thinking about the beginning, you're not thinking about the end, which to me always gets me tripped up.
Yeah.
But I also remember you used to do this thing, which I have never forgotten, which is you used to write your column at Real Simple on your BlackBerry. You used to say, you'd be like, yeah, and to me, there was I still think about that, because I'm like, I'll write something on my phone. Whenever I have writer's block, I'll think, you know what? I'm not going to sit down at the computer and like write something. I'm going to like go to a coffee shop, sit on my phone and just bang it out. There's some, right? Like,
yeah, I did. Well, I did write those Real Simple columns, which were probably all about, I don't know, 600 or 700 words long on my BlackBerry. But a lot of that had to do with the keyboard. Like I could not, I wasn't writing anything on my iPhone because I can't feel the keys. And that like, well, is there cursing on this?
There is cursing. You may curse.
Like that goddamn autocorrect. Like every other word is like autocorrect.
Yeah, it's awful.
Because of those stupid keys. Whereas like the BlackBerry, I could type on that thing without even looking at the keys because I knew exactly, because you could feel the keys and I knew where they all were.
Right.
So it was more about that. But also I would like write it. I would write that column oftentimes when I was on the train, which is sort of like a good quiet space kind of.
Yeah.
Do you write on your phone then?
I do sometimes, yeah. Inspired by you, but not, I was inspired for a different reason, I guess. Your technology.
You went beyond.
Yes, I did. Learn from the master. How did writing this book, so you had the previous book, and this is in some ways like a little bit of a sequel in a way, or just more memoir?
I guess.
Yeah. Was writing this book different in any way from the first one, or had you learned things from the first one?
Well, that's a good question. It was like a decade passed in between the two.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, the first book has this very set framing device because it's set up like a dictionary. And so that first book was almost like putting together a magazine. Like I was putting these like different pieces together, where this is like pretty much like straight up essays.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this was more enjoyable than the first one.
That's interesting.
I didn't have to write to a framework.
Right. Right.
And so
More freeing.
like the essays could be like as long as they felt like they wanted to be, and it was freeing.
I think there's a lot in the book about kind of the irritations of midlife. And there's a line in the book that struck me, which is, I'm not letting go of sad. Can you speak to that a little bit, just as it relates to kind of how we are in midlife? And, I think in the context of it, you were talking about how there are all these, like, maybe including us, like sites about like how, stories and sites about how midlife is awesome, we are badass, we're all these things, and you're like, I'm not letting go of the sad. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So that is in a chapter about children. And I mean, I do think, for the most part, it's an optimistic book. I like to think that, like I feel optimistic pretty much every day or most days. But I think that with sadness, for me, if you allow yourself, when I allow myself to feel sad about something, it makes me stop for a minute. And I feel like sadness for me is a more reflective mode of being than happiness, optimism, laughter, cheerfulness. And so when I feel sad, it makes me sort of take a measure of who I am in the world, and what my life has meant, and hopefully will continue to mean, in a way that makes me pause, that I think is good for me. So, I mean, if you like, there's nothing worse, I think, than a person who like pretends everything's great all the time. Yeah. People like that are super boring, first of all. Yeah. Like when I sit down next to someone I've never met, like at a dinner party or something, like I want to hear the shitty thing that happened to them. Like not, and that they survived and now they can look back and like maybe laugh about it. But like, I don't want to hear like how perfect everything is. That's just it's boring and stupid and it's not real. Anyway. So I think that sadness is is an important part of your experience at every stage of life. Yeah,
that's true. And we tend to, I think, especially as Americans, like run away from that. We don't want to sort of embrace the darker sides, and can't really have the light without the dark.
Margit, I should say, like, if I were sad all the time, I'm able to appreciate sad because I'm not sad that often.
Right.
And I know there are people who are sad a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And that would be terrible. So I think I can talk about sadness in a positive way because it's not my constant mode.
Right. Can we talk about root canals for a minute? Because I just had one, and I've been complaining to everyone in TueNighters about my root canal, which was like multiple appointments. And when I read your chapter where you talk about the good quote, everywhere I go these days, someone is scolding me about deferred maintenance. I was like, oh my God, yes. It's like midlife is like, you didn't keep up with your teeth. You didn't keep up with your car. You didn't keep up with like whatever thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like stuff starts crumbling. It's like, God. And like at the end of my root canal, the guy's like, well, you also have this one and this molar, and that's next. Just like, anyway.
Okay. I could talk to you about root canals for the next hour and a half.
So could I.
Because what you don't realize, and even bringing that up, Margit, that I've had 2 root canals in the past 6 weeks. One down here and one up here. And I actually love my endodontist, who PS texts with me on like a Saturday.
That's
like
nice.
You can text her and say like, I don't feel so good. And she'll like text you right back. But I was at the dentist today getting the crown measurement for the one up.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, you don't even know what you have raised. And then, well, sorry, it's so. I said to my husband and my kids, like, aren't you so excited for me to be finished with all this? So I'll stop talking about my teeth. Like all I talk about is my teeth.
Well, it's impact. I mean, wrong word, impactful, but it's like, it's, it's how we eat our food. It's like, and then, I spent like 6 weeks trying to chew on this side. Now this side is all sore. And anyway.
Oh, honey, we'll have to talk after class about this whole thing. Well, you know what? I'll tell you, I have a friend who's an ER doctor, and he said, he was talking to me about tooth pain once, and he said in the ER, they get a lot of people with tooth pain in the ER because you can't. And then I was talking to my dentist about it, and I said, why is tooth pain so awful? And she said, because you can't get away from it. Oh, no. That's sorry, she said, because it has nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was such an interesting, I thought, how can I use that metaphor for something like the pain has nowhere to go? And that's why it bothers me so much.
I'm just going to say one more thing about my endodontist spent, he talked the entire time. That was his strategy to keep me unaware of the pain. He would just talk. And every appointment I had, he told the same stories at every appointment. And so it's like, oh my God, I heard the story again. But he, oh my God, I just forgot what I was going to say.
Okay, wait. You said,
oh my God.
He talked the whole time to distract you. That's where you were going. He talked the whole time to distract you.
Yes.
The same stories every time.
Yeah, same stories every time. But the story that he told, he started telling me the stories became more and more grim, actually. And he was like telling me about how more dentists commit suicide than other medical professions, and that partly he believes because people feel the right and need to complain about dentists. He's like, people don't complain when they get surgery about, when they get heart surgery, they don't complain. I was like, they probably do complain, but he's like, but they feel the need to complain about, and find a second opinion. And I was like, okay, anyway. Wow, this has got off the rails.
Well, all right. My endodontist said, I asked her, does anyone ever fall asleep in your chair? And she said, every single day.
Oh.
Can you imagine?
Wow. No, not at all. I was like riveted. I was looking in the mirror. He's like, do you want to see your teeth? I was like, yeah.
Oh, I didn't. Oh, no, I keep my eyes.
You didn't want to see the teeth? Okay. Well, another thing that speaking of these like midlife, you have a, I don't know if there's a name in the sort of literary industry, but like the first chapter in your book is I feel very significant. And there's, I related to it a lot just because having gone through cancer. You didn't go through cancer, but you had what you thought was, we won't give it away, but it was related to your gallbladder. It was pain in your abdomen. I don't know, talk about that chapter a little bit and sort of the process of writing it as somebody who has been through just medical hell. Was it something that you wrote? And everybody has to read it. It's so well done. But was it something that you wrote soon after the event or sort of during it or well after? Yeah, well after.
Well, months and months after, I would say, like right after it. So it was just to tell people a little without telling them so much that they aren't then forced to buy the book. I did something stupid that resulted in a week-long hospital stay involving an abdominal problem, let's say. Anyway, I right afterwards, it was so miserable. And like people said to me, are you going to write about this? And I was like, no fucking way am I writing about this. Like it was awful. But then like after a while, it's like the Nora Ephron, everything is copy thing, right? Like after a while, I began to see some of the like crazy, funny things that happened to me when I was in the hospital in a light where I felt like I could make an entertaining story out of it. And it was a bonkers event. So anyway, I did write about it, and it was pretty fun to write about. I mean, the title of the chapter is Fork Lady, and I sent the surgeon who did my surgery, I sent him the chapter because I use his real name, and I wanted him to either say, change my name, or yes, I'm fine with you using my name. And he read it, and he was fine with me keeping his name, but he didn't like the fact that the hospital gave me a nickname, Fork Lady. And I was like, I think that's actually really funny.
Yeah.
But he's a surgeon. He's an abdominal surgeon. I don't think he's known for his humor. He's a good surgeon.
Right.
But anyway, it was it was, as I write about in the book, it was the first time that something happened to me that I knew happened, where I look back and it could have really been terrible. Like I could have died if I had let that whole thing play out. And that was the first time in my life that something like that happened, where I'm able to say, oh, you know what, I could have died from that.
Yeah.
And that's an event.
Did you feel like it changed you? It's like your outlook on life?
No.
People ask me this all the time, and that's my answer too. It didn't really, not exactly, right?
It didn't? Because I do wonder sometimes, if and when I get cancer, will that be the thing that makes me think? Do you leave out of bed every day so grateful to be here? And
no, you're sort of always waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's kind of like, I don't know. Well, I mean, which maybe that is a change, I definitely, I looked at death, you sort of see what that looks like, even if it's not something, my cancer was very early. It was ovarian cancer, found early, but when you're going through chemotherapy, everything around you is kind of death. Like all the people, who walk by and they're like, oh, this is my fourth bout. And it's just like, oh my God. So, I mean, I guess maybe it has changed me in some ways. It changed my haircut, but thank you. Just decided, I can't go backwards. That's how I feel. I don't want to go backwards. I want to sort of keep moving forwards. So yeah.
I guess it made me, there are days when I think about how much it sucked. And then I think, oh, that sucked. And aren't I glad I'm not in that position right now? So
yeah,
but it didn't change me. It just gave me something else to be grateful for, I guess.
Right. Exactly. Let's talk about your career a little bit. You're now a literary agent. How different is that from the world of magazines and all that? Have you had to sort of learn new skills?
Oh, totally. I mean, it is similar in that you're looking for great writing and looking for written or visual content that you think someone will pay money for. So that part is similar, but mechanisms are all different. The people are all different. It's extremely humbling to start a new career in your 50s, particularly when, you did something and you were pretty good at it and you've been doing it for a long time. And that it does give you this false sense of what's the word? Invincibility or something. I don't know. False sense of some word that I can't think of. And then you try this other, you think oh, I was good at that. I can be good at this other thing. And then you go to do the other thing and you're like, wow, this is pretty hard, but I'm not that good at it yet. So, which I think is actually very good for me as a human being to do a thing where I had to learn again. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's different. I mean, book people are different from magazine people. I don't work for a corporation. I work for, we're a mid-sized literary agency, but we have 25 employees. I'm used to working in a very corporate environment, or I was for many years. So yeah, a lot of things about it that are different.
Yeah. Well, and, we talked earlier before this about Real Simple a little bit and working there. And I was only there for about a year, a little more. And and you have a chapter called The Shalom Amulet, I believe. Is that right? About your own departure from Real Simple. And I certainly, I read that with a certain level of, having left Real Simple myself and, I'll just say it. I was laid off in 2008 and working for, somebody that worked for you. So it was very distant from you. But I read that chapter and I felt like a lot of kinship with you, actually, and what that experience was like. I had left much earlier, but it was, feeling like, like I was mad at the man, and I was like, oh, this big corporation. And I was feeling very angry at the time. And, in hindsight, sort of like, honestly, the best thing that could have happened to me, because it allowed me to really take stock in sort of my own trajectory and what I wanted to do and who I was. And I ended up starting my own business, which I would never have done. So it's definitely one of those, for me, it was a pivotal moment of like sort of a fail that resulted in like a whole new world. So I'm wondering for you, do you have that same, real simple, you were real simple. I mean, and you were there for such a long time, and it was like, there was, you guys were interchangeable, the brand and KVO. How did you feel, how have you reckoned with that moment for yourself, having left Real Simple? That was a lot, sorry.
It's such a big question. How do I reckon with it? I mean,
or do you? Maybe you don't.
I don't know. I know what the word reckon means, but I don't feel like I understand the question. I mean, I feel like what you did was amazing. Like you left, it wasn't your choice, but you turned that, you like made a silk purse out of a sow's ear, right?
Yeah.
Whereas for me, I don't feel, it was such a great job.
Yeah.
But my sadness about that job was years in the making. It just got sucked, and I write about in that Shalom chapter. It just got suckier and suckier. And I had no idea what I was going to do next. But I was so unhappy that I thought, I'm going to leave and I don't know what's going to happen. And so that was a little, and people said to me like, oh, you're so brave. A lot of people said, you're so brave. And I thought, I'm not brave. I'm just like miserable.
Yeah.
And it's making me a miserable person. So I'm very glad, but I'm so grateful though that I had that job, because there was a period of my life that probably lasted a good like 8 or 9 years, where I had a job that I was so well suited for, and it was like the perfect alignment, and it was fun.
Yeah.
And I feel incredibly lucky to have had that experience. And I probably will never have that again, but I had it, and that was great.
Right. Yeah. That's a tough one, I think, in midlife to sort of also like, for me, that job was working at an alt weekly in the 90s. Like it was this job that was me. I was like very much, I mean, I think this is me too, but in some ways a little bit of my heart and my, youth and all that stuff was in that job. And and working with crazy people, and it was amazing. I'll never have that experience again in the same way. And I think that's one of those things, like reckon. We sort of like have to make it right in our head. Like, okay, it's about adaptation and adjusting and figuring out how to live in this crazy tech world. And especially when you're not the most tech savvy.
Well,
I'm not so bad, but
here's an answer, I guess. The thing that's probably been that I'm having the hardest time reckoning with is, by the end of my magazine editor life, I had been working in magazines for, I think, 27 years. And like, I really knew what I was doing. I mean, people who worked at Real Simple could argue that, I'm sure. People who worked at TueNight
No, you did.
But like, I felt like I knew what I was doing. I felt like I was good at it. I felt like I was in the right job. And I had, over the years, built enough skills that like, I felt like I was good at it.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize until I left was how good that made me feel.
Yeah.
How good being good at a job made me feel. Mm-hmm. And so on days when, so I've been an agent, a literary agent now for like almost 3, it'll be 3 years in September. And I mean, I've definitely had successes, and the successes are increasing in frequency the longer I do it, but I'm not at that stage where I'm like, oh yeah, like this is like, I'm like the greatest,
right?
And so there are days when I just think, oh, like, this is hard. Mm-hmm. And it makes me feel bad.
Yeah.
Which again, I think is probably good for me as a human being, but it's not a feeling I love,
No, I think we all feel that way though, right? I mean, I think we all have days where we're like, oh, maybe I kind of figured it out. And then other days we're like, I don't get it. I'll never get it. I don't know. It's like when I was like a kid and I would look at the clock. I was like, you're 5. And I was like, I'll never figure that out. I don't know how to tell time, and I'm not going to figure it out ever.
But I'm, just like you in the Alt Weekly, like I'm glad that I had that experience.
Right.
I'll never forget it.
Right. I want to look and see, we have some questions. We have a question. Michelle asks, can you speak more about how to live with no attachment to outcome? So I know you were talking about writing with no attachment to outcome, but is there a way to live your life that way?
Oh, I don't know. I think I'd have to be a therapist I think no attachment to outcome involves allowing a flexibility of thought. Mm-hmm. But it also, maybe it requires kind of a bedrock feeling of comfort that like, it's all going to be okay. Like no matter, I remember going back to real simple. I remember when I was offered that job. I wasn't one of the people who thought, oh, I want to be an editor-in-chief. But I was offered this job, and I thought, okay, there are 3 things that could happen. I could hate it and quit. I could be bad at it and get fired, or I could like it and be good at it. And I thought all those things I'm comfortable with. And so I guess in that, like that's a real life example of having no attachment to outcome. I knew what the possible outcomes were, and I was okay with any of them. And I felt that way when I left that job. Like I talked to my husband, I thought, okay, like worst case scenario, we have to like downsize, sell the house, all the stuff, because I'm not going to have this corporate salary anymore. And like we looked at the things and thought, okay, like we're comfortable with these different possibilities. So I don't know. But I will say, if there are any writers who are here tonight, I think that no attachment to outcome when it comes to trying to write a book is really important. Like there's nothing that makes my heart sink faster than, talking to a potential new client who says to me like, well, I want to get a huge advance. And I think, that's like a really tough place to start. Like it's just, but then you get people who say, I just really want my book to be published. And then you think that is a great place to start,
That's really good advice. That's really good advice. Do you have other advice like that as a literary agent, for people who are aspiring writers and just trying to make their book happen? I might be speaking for myself.
Well, I mean, I have some things I've learned. So for instance, memoir is incredibly hard to sell. A lot of people write memoirs. A lot of editors say they want to acquire memoirs, and like it's really, really tough.
What about essays? You did sort of a collection of essays.
Yeah.
Are those also difficult versus
it depends on the writing. There's certain things like memoir, essay collections where unless you have a really big platform, platform is a word that publishers talk about all the time. Mm-hmm. What's the size of your platform? Because they really want you to have a platform to help sell your book. But things like essay collections and memoirs, really, it like the writing has to be at such a level that even if you don't have a platform, it still is, it's still appealing to a publisher.
Right.
I would say, keep your expectations modest. Oh gosh, what else? I mean, that's sort of, I don't know.
That's good.
I'm sure there are many other things, but
It's okay.
those are the things that kind of pop into my head.
Yeah. Corinne asks, Corinne, who used to work with us at Real Simple, did you think that the chapter about leaving Real Simple would resonate with so many people who couldn't articulate what it was like to leave publishing?
No. I was shocked, Corinne. I was shocked. I don't know. I don't think I told Corinne this. I definitely didn't tell you this, Margit. Like I got emails and like DMs from people I worked with at Time Inc., but like ages ago, who I'd completely forgotten, saying, "Oh my God, like that was exactly my experience. I can't believe that happened to you. That same exact thing happened to me." And I was really surprised at the number of people that I heard from. With that essay.
It's like there's this secret conversation happening, or a secret experience we're all having and not talking about, or we can't articulate, as Corinne said. We don't even know how to speak about it. We just know it's there. And yeah, you put it into words very well. And that, I don't know if we can, I don't want to spoil that story, but that comment that the guy makes, your successor, or your the guy who would be your new boss.
Yeah.
What is it? Yeah. I won't say it, but it's
well, he's sexist. Let's just say he says something incredibly inappropriate and sexist. Well, I'll say it. Can I say it? Because I actually
I don't.
There's a good sort of like generational TueNight thing that happened after that. So he said that he met all the editors at the building, but there was only one. This is in a conference room as I'm telling the staff of Real Simple that I'm leaving. I tell them I'm leaving. I burst into tears. Then he gets up to talk. And he starts talking about all the editors in the building, and he met them all. It was kind of like speed dating, but there was only one he wanted to take back to the honeymoon suite, Kristin. And we were all like,
who says that?
A room full of women. Now, I will say that this was 2016. One would hope he wouldn't say this now. But the thing that was interesting to me, though, so when he said that to me, I was 52, I guess, or 53. Right. So I was like in my early 50s. And like he said it, and I was like, ugh, what a stupid thing to say, big loser. But then like women came into my office like the young women at Real Simple were just so mad. Whereas me, I'm like, and how terrible is this? Like, I was like, you hear shit like that by the time you're
because we've grown up. Yeah, because we've grown up with that kind of like behavior from.
But the young women were really pissed. Right. And then I thought to myself, what's wrong with me that I'm not super pissed? I was just used to it. Yeah. So it was good that the younger women were so mad, but not so good maybe that I wasn't mad.
We have about 5 minutes left. I just want to sort of do a check. Does anybody have any other questions? Let me just double check. No, I think we've gone through them.
About root canals, you can ask me anything.
Root canals, yes. I want to ask you, like, we've been talking a lot in the group too about midlife gap years. This idea of like, kind of taking a moment, which I sort of felt, I felt like it resonated a little bit within your book, after leaving Real Simple, and sort of the idea of going off and just kind of like just taking a minute. Have you thought about framing it in that way, this gap year idea? Have you heard of that concept?
Well,
it's not a very I didn't articulate that well, but I guess what's my question? More like I guess you can only really take one moment like that in your life. I mean, maybe you can take more than one, But sort of you took that was your midlife gap year in a way, right? Before you did the literary agent job.
It was a gap
So,
2 years.
2 years. Yeah.
2 years. But and what was interesting for me about the 2 years, or what helped me grow, I think, is that I tried things. I don't know if this is true for you. It's definitely true for me that, like, going through life, you think, well, maybe all along I should have been a circus clown. Maybe all along I should have been an oral surgeon.
Right.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
You know, did I really find, like, my true destiny? And so I was able in those couple of years to try things that I thought maybe were the thing I should have been doing all along, like be a stay-at-home mom, write a novel, work for a nonprofit. And, like, none of those things felt right. And so in that way, it was really useful. It wasn't like a gap year sail around the world, unless that was like a thing maybe that you thought you should have been doing all along. Like, I used it to try these other things that weren't the true thing.
Right.
And so that was really helpful. But I also had, I had a 401k and I had a husband who was working, and, like, I was really lucky that I was able, like, it was a huge first world luxury to be able to do that.
I feel like we should make it a thing. Like, I feel like it should be mandatory that we take a midlife moment where we can just take off and do something like a sabbatical that's just an enforced sabbatical.
Well, you wonder in the pandemic how many women, you read article upon article about women leaving the workforce. Like, you wonder how many of women are doing just that right now, maybe.
Right. And they say the great resignation, I think it's called, where people are just quitting their jobs. People have, like, experienced this, sort of working from home and the options, and mostly millennials, I think they say, but I think a lot of people are just deciding to do things differently.
And you wonder, how will, for those that leave the workforce, will they be able to get back in?
Yeah. Right. What's next for you? Let's talk about that. And before we wrap up, like, what's next?
Well, I mean, I'd love to write another book sometime. Not working on anything now.
No? Okay.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, right now it's just, this spring was challenging. I mean, like, I was blessed, but it was challenging to work full time and try to promote a book at the same time. So now I'm just going to concentrate on being an agent.
And helping other people.
That's what's next for me. It's not super exciting sounding, I guess, but
no, it is. Are you kidding? You're sort of, you're helping great writers find a home. That's good.
Yeah. So any writers on in this meeting, well, you can find me on the income management.
Oh, really? You want to do that?
Well, why not? You never know. You never know.
Okay.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, even agents who've been agents for decades, it's like you turn over every rock because you never know what's going to be under there.
Right.
You never
have a
know.
Specialty? Do you have a certain kind of writer you're looking for?
Doing, I do almost entirely nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
So increasingly
memoir.
more style. Some memoir, but memoir is tough. I would say practical nonfiction.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Right.
And then memoir, if it's, like, amazing, but 9 times out of 10, I think I, like other agents, decline to represent a memoir if it's not, like, unbelievable, because the barrier to entry is just so incredibly high.
Right. Gotcha. Well, Kristin, I just want to thank you so much. This was super fun to reconnect. It's been a long time.
No, you're very kind to have me.
Oh, well, we're thrilled. And I think, yes, there's a link in the chat where you can buy Kristin's book. There's a few different places you can buy her book, and where you can follow her. Thank you, Robin. And let's bring Robin back up. Robin, if you want to come back.
Oh, I do. A couple of things based on what the two of you were just saying. One, I played a dentist in a commercial, so we're not all bad.
And you have lovely teeth.
Oh, thanks.
You have great teeth.
Oh, thank
Right?
you so much. Here's my secret, because people will comment on how like bright they are, and I don't do anything except drink a shit ton of water. And so I like drink a sip of coffee, sip of water, sip of coffee, sip of water. So there's never any stain on my teeth.
Oh.
Little pro tip from an amateur dentist who's only played me on TV. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say, when you were talking about jobs that are well suited for the two of you, I feel like I really peaked when I drove the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. So that job was totally.
That was your peak moment?
Totally. I mean, I'm proud of you, is the word, but you know, also quite proud to be a former hot dogger. So anyway, so wanted to share with everybody watching that we have so many awesome events coming up in the next couple of months. So I'm going to drop them in the chat, but first I'm going to read off what they are. So in 2 weeks, we have another TueNighter tea with Theo Kogan, who is the front woman of the Lunatics, and she's going to be talking with Margit and
girls.
Yeah, and Jeannie Fury, who's a music journalist, about their book called Fallopian Rhapsody, and
which is funny, actually.
I know.
So Fallopian Rhapsody was a song. And I was a music journalist, and maybe there's something, but anyway, my column about cancer was called Ovarian Rhapsody. Anyway, I didn't know that. So anyway.
Yeah, as soon as I read that, I was like,
Lady Part Rhapsodies.
Yeah, so that's on Tuesday, and we're going to be, in some cases, we're doing our events a little bit later. So that's going to be 8 o'clock to help our West Coast friends be able to catch these events live. The following night, which is a Wednesday, we're going to do the organizing your digital photos, which Margit talked about at the top, with a professional organizer. And that's going to be great. She's so many great tips, and I just feel like, please get my phone in order and everything else. And then in September, we're doing a 4-week course, which is all about becoming an online dating badass. That's going to be every Wednesday at 8. And then in October, we're going to do a 4-week course. That's the 4 Ds of end of life, which is going to be with an end of life doula. That's a thing.
She's awesome.
She is awesome. She's so smart. Mm-hmm. She's going to break it all down for like how to digitize, how to document, how to even have these conversations. And then we're going to be doing something financial related for November, which we're still working on. And then in December, we're doing a workshop with Dr. Alfie, who's a mental health expert, all about seasonal affective disorder and how you're getting through the winter months and like the doldrums of that. So I'm going to drop all of these in the chat, and then you can sign up for those at the link down at the bottom.
Yep.
In the green box.
TueNighters.com. If you're a member, those those will get you access to those events.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Kristin, and thank you everybody who joined us tonight. This was really a great conversation, and I hope you all buy Kristin's book because it's hilarious and wonderful and inspiring, and it's all the things. So, yeah.
Well, I can't talk and type at the same time. I'm typing and I'm saying thank you.
Good.
Oh, one
right.
last thing. If you enjoyed this event, and how could you not, there's an option down below that says clip moment. So if you want to go back and share some of your favorite moments, maybe talking about root canals, maybe talking about, making transitions from losing your job, whatever your moments, whatever your favorite moments are, you can share those on social. Right. It's super easy. So, yeah. And then we're getting like called out with a siren apparently. Well, because they just know how like electric this conversation. So, all right. Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody, and we will see you next time.
Thanks,
all right. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.